Hi everyone, it's May 22nd, 2025, and this is the weekly Backdrop Dev meeting. We get together every week to talk about development priorities for Backdrop CMS. Last week, after the meeting, we had the release of Backdrop 131, so that's exciting. New minor version of Backdrop has been released. Uh, but yeah, we'll talk about some other post-release tasks and other issues today. We just have a small group here. We've got just myself, Martin, and Ben, but we'll do introductions. Starting with myself. I'm Nate Lampton. I'm a core committer and technical lead for the Backdrop project, calling in from Oakland, California. Martin, and then Ben.
Hi, I'm Martin Price, Yorkshire Pudding around Backdrop Internet, and I'm a web developer and backdrop developer from Northeast England, United Kingdom.
Hey, I'm Ben. I'm Benny Bob W on the Zulip and everything, and I work for Giant Rabbit. I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina.
Great. Thank you both for joining today. We do Contrib updates, and it's funny, this week's Contrib update is there's one new project called File Usage Fixer module, which is relevant to last week's meeting where we were talking about file usage tracking somehow getting mangled because of either modules weren't tracking usage correctly or they were upgrading from 777 and a bunch of files were at some point in the earlier life of that Drupal site uh, not tracking files correctly. And so this file usage fixer module by Indigo Zella makes it so that module or files that uh, don't have any usages but are marked permanent get a usage added, I think is the solution that this does. Essentially making it so that all files that are permanent on your site get marked as having a file usage, which makes it so that they're all available inside of the media browser um, for inserting images inside of your WYSIWYG, for example. So that's cool. Thank you, Indigo Zala, for creating that. I wonder how much that will mitigate our need to do other work in core. I think that there's probably some aspects uh, in the core that we should still probably fix. And that's, let's see, this is the uh, let's see, issue 6907 is that like we should fix the upgrade path to mark things permanent. So that issue should still be addressed, but it is nice that Indigo has made this workaround to solve the problem for existing sites. Let's see. Regarding the Backdrop 131 release, there's been some follow-up tasks have been completed, like upgrading a couple of the Backdrop CMS.org properties and updating various upstream sources like Pantheon. But the biggest follow-up task there that hasn't been completed is we need a blog post to recap our features in Backdrop 131. I don't think anybody's taken the lead on writing up that post yet. I'll see if I can stub out a draft. Oftentimes, the best blog posts come from us kind of tag teaming the contents of it. But it's also really not a very big release, so I don't think that it should take very long to cover its functionality. All right. Well, let's see. The one issue that we had marked in the forum for today is issue 6900. And Martin had flagged that as being something that he wanted to talk about. So, Martin, why don't you take it away if you can kind of frame this issue for us?
Yeah. Okay. Well, entities such as things like node users and Contrib entities like paragraphs define specific properties, and they become reserved words for that entity. So you can't do it. And the backdrop also enforces that reserved word for fields across the system. So paragraphs, this is possibly the easiest and probably the most common example. Paragraphs has a property called field name, which refers to the field that's containing the paragraphs. But when you generate a field in backdrop, the usual machine name is field underscore, and then lowercase of what you've done. And so with name being quite a common field on sites, I've often kind of added that before I've even installed paragraphs when I've been doing it. Now, if you install paragraphs and then you try and create a field that says field name, you'll be prevented from doing it. But if you've already created it, then you install paragraphs, nothing happens, and you can even add an instance of that field to a paragraph bundle, so paragraph type. So let's say you add that to a paragraph type, it doesn't create an error then, but it creates a fatal error when you try to save any content with that paragraph type on, because it's causing a problem. So what I've done is, and RGPiano has helped me kind of pinpoint this and also provided some helpful sort of feedback and more detailed context. Worked out that it was the field create instance that was the initial one, and that was quite easy to address. It basically prevents you from adding that field and shows an error message on the screen, which is great. RGPiano suggested we should also do it in edit instance. That proved a bit trickier because adding a field exception then caused a fatal error when you were doing it, and it also caused tests to fail, probably because of that fatal error. So I then just tried to, I then set it to just say backdrop set error, but it will still, it will allow you to save whatever changes and it will just show that error. So it kind of left me thinking, well, is there a way we can actually force them to get rid of this field, or should we also be having something on the status report flagging up that this is a problem and it's going to cause them to have an error when it crashes? Or is there a way that we can actually handle that error? I mean, I guess it's trying to make it so that if people do this, that we can catch it as early as possible. And firstly, it will stop it being added to a paragraphs type. But if someone's already got it added to a paragraphs type, but they've never used that paragraph type on a node, then it won't have manifested, and it might only manifest when their client tries to use that paragraph type on a node, and they'll not know what's causing it. So we want to try and stop people running into that kind of anonymous fatal error that they're not going to know what to do with. But it's wondering what the best approach to that is.
Boy, it seems weird to me that we allow field underscore in entity keys. I mean, isn't that a problem? Why do we allow that? It's weird that that's an entity key for paragraphs, right? Because it's not an actual field, it's actually a property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, I mean, I would agree that I don't think that this is a good choice,
Yeah.
but also like, I mean, as far as like what we allow, this is, this is code, right? It's not like a UI driven decision here that this module made this choice and, protecting against every possible, coding configuration can be challenging. But I don't, paragraphs is such a well-established and historical module, and this existed in Drupal 7 as well. Like we inherited this, uh, uh, the port of paragraphs, and disrupting something like this would probably be uh, it would be a big change for this module.
Would it though? I mean, couldn't they just replace all field name and just change it to something else? This seems like a bug in paragraphs to me. You shouldn't have an entity key that can be the same as the name of an actual field.
I agree.
But we probably do need to still address this in core because anyone can add custom entities and anyone might add a. So even if we address this also in paragraphs, people could still come into this with a custom entity where they call something field something and think, well, I would never use anything like that, and then someone comes along who uses that entity and decides to create a field that actually produces that. So um,
They
Yeah,
could,
I
but
think
it's
we
never
still need
happened
to.
before. This is literally the only time I've ever seen this error in how many years of working with Drupal 7?
Yeah,
15 years?
I mean it. I guess it depends if you typically sort of start developing a site and you instantly install all the modules that you know you're going to need, then you're not going to be able to create a field with this name.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I understand. I think it's not good.
it's really only if you create that field before uh, you create that field before you install paragraphs that it's manifesting. Um,
yeah. So something that I'm seeing here that um like this fix works for paragraphs. So let's look at the actual fix here. So if the field name that you're trying to create uh is one of the entity keys, then don't allow it. So this is the list of entity keys that's being checked. And so if the field name is, literally field underscore name, then it's going to throw the exception. But the thing is that this won't be totally comprehensive because there's other properties besides the entity keys that can be in place.
okay.
I'm trying to find the example from Node here about where Node defines its other properties, and I'm not actually sure where that happens. But I'm trying to find it here. Uh, yeah, you know, like this Node. Oh gosh, Node changed, for example. Like
Mm,
that's not a key, but it's another property. So, and there's yeah, revision
Mm,
timestamp, revision UID, all of these things are additional properties, yet they're not defined in uh, you know, this is node entity info. Its entity keys are only ID, revision, and bundle, but there's
yeah,
other properties that are
right.
on the node object besides these entity keys. But I'm not quite sure where that list is or where it would come from. Um, yeah, I'm not even sure if it's tracked. Um, but this kind of goes back to what Ben was saying, that like just starting like any of your custom properties starting with field underscore is
Yeah.
just gonna get it just could
Yeah.
potentially
And
cause all kinds of
and it
problems.
looking at adding a new field, you're really only going to have the option. Any new fields are going to be field underscore something. Um, so it's possibly not an issue, not going to be an issue for some of these others unless any properties are defined with field underscore something.
Oh yeah, here's uh, a way potentially. I mean, all of the properties, and this is we're actually pretty consistent about this now in Backdrop Core that the properties are all defined on the class at least.
Yeah. And is there a function that says uh, get properties or anything like that for the
Yeah, this is a funny thing because these things only exist once an instance is created, and we kind of want to just be able to see just on the class itself, like do these properties exist?
yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to do this that makes sense
I
because I
was
don't.
doing something earlier this week that I had never seen before, which is PHP had me create a reflection class of something, and I wonder if that could grab the properties.
Yeah, it totally could. Uh, reflection is I don't really like the magic of reflection, but we do use it in core already for update hooks that um, update hooks like just update, and we'll just pull up a random one here. So this is it's not very good. Okay, I'll pull up the whole file here, which is a big one. Okay, here we go. So inside of each one of these update hooks, um, get to one. Here we go. So what we do is when you visit update.php, we take this first sentence here, and this actually ends up becoming what you see in update.php to run the update. So it says update 1002, set Bartik as the default theme if it implicitly was the default before. So yeah, it's already yeah, we already use it in that way. So that would work. It'd be a you know, it'd be a bit of a headache. We'd probably want some kind of utility function like um, I don't know, entity get properties or something like that, and you pass in the entity type node, and then it uses entity info uh, to get the class, and then it would use reflection on that class because that's a little bit of a that's some hoops to jump through to get that list of properties. Um, So anyway, so that's just I mean, that's like a little deficiency in this particular approach that it doesn't catch really everything. Um, but yeah, man, this is a lot of work for fundamentally just like trying to prevent something that was kind of a bad idea on the part of paragraphs. Another thing that kind of occurs to me as a like I don't know, maybe this should just be paragraphs module that is catching this exception, saying, "Hey,
Yeah, I did
don't do
did
this."
hunt in paragraphs to try and find it, and I couldn't find anywhere in paragraphs where I could,
Yeah, where you could hook into this.
because it is the field uh, create instance where it's added in.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. They're good questions. Uh, yeah. On the other hand, on the other hand, with all of this is like, you know, like the problem that we're facing here of field name plus paragraphs, this is a not unlikely scenario to have happen, right?
yeah,
And so like just having a fix that fixes this one scenario is going to solve pretty much the only time people would ever run into this problem in the first place. You know?
yeah,
So it's like this pull request as is already going to fix the problem for 100% of known situations where this can occur, which is just
yeah.
a paragraphs module.
It's not gonna fix it if they've already added it to a paragraph type. That's what the questions in the final comment are trying to get to, is what should we do to try and help people know that there might be a problem with this paragraph type?
Hmm. Yeah,
Because we could just do something on the status.
so that's something where if we wanted to have somebody, if paragraphs wanted to take on dealing with its own problem that it created, it would make sense if paragraphs could use the report there to say, hey, that's a bad idea. Because I think that paragraphs has kind of created this problem. Uh, that it would make sense if it had its own requirements check that flagged, hey, don't use field name because that's reserved.
Uh-huh.
Because another thing that may, yeah, is it only when you do it, add a field called field name on a paragraph, or is it when you add a field name on a node?
It's when you can add it to the paragraph type, no problem. It's when you add that paragraph type to a node. So you've got a paragraphs field on content type, and you create a node of that content type and add that paragraph type. That's and you try and save it. That's when the fatal error happens.
Wait, so
Okay.
does the parent node have field name on it, or it doesn't have to?
No,
No, okay.
Yeah, so this is on the paragraph itself.
and it
Okay.
would only. I think you could carry on saving nodes that had that field name field, and it wouldn't cause a problem. It's only when you try to add the paragraph type that has that field on that it
Oh, I
causes
see.
a problem.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So so I would say, Martin, as far as like let's make a solution here that is proportionate to the size of the problem.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that that maybe we say this is fine because this is going to fix it's going to prevent the paragraph specific problem. It
Yeah.
also could prevent some other hypothetical problems here about
Yeah.
like if somebody else put something else in one of their entity keys, but it doesn't check all properties. So it's not like a comprehensive preventative measure, but
No.
but it's an easily available preventative measure. You can see actually there's a number of other to-dos in here about how we could better validate fields that we don't do already. And so I would say like leave this as is, but also add another to-do saying, check all properties and not
Uh-huh.
just entity keys. Um,
Okay.
and that would, I think that that would make it so that this is just like making it aware that there could be a more comprehensive solution,
And
but
then add a
this is better than
requirements
nothing.
check into paragraphs.
Yeah. And then I
But
would say
paragraphs can throw an error.
yep, yep. That let's not burden core with this problem of paragraphs used a bad field key. You know.
Yeah, another option would be we throw a fatal error in entity get info.
Well, a fatal? You mean like we'd white screen?
No, not white screen. You like if somebody tries to develop a key like a key that has a property or like a property name in it, we throw
Oh,
that
Yeah,
throws
I
an
mean, we
error.
probably don't want to add fatal errors where we can avoid it. It's more we want
Yeah, maybe
to
not.
had handled managed errors that either warn or stop someone doing something.
yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, the example here of nodes, how nodes have other properties like revision UID and
Right.
stuff like that. Uh,
mhm,
I don't. I could totally see it being done where somebody made a custom entity type and they added a whole bunch of properties that were all field underscore something because they're like, oh, properties and backdrop usually start with field underscore. And so they just made all of their custom properties all start with field underscore, even though they're not actual fields.
mm.
And by doing so, they would have created this problem, um, similar to paragraphs for a whole bunch of custom properties. And I think in that scenario, um, I mean, this is us kind of punting the problem off to Contrib, like that again, like those modules created the problem, and so they would be responsible for like preventing or warning users, hey, you can't have a field with this name with this module because they're
Yeah.
gonna collide. Um,
But if they then made that entity fieldable, at least with this, core would then prevent them from. Well, I suppose if it was an entity key, it would prevent it. Not if it was. Uh,
yeah,
so,
if it was a
it,
custom, not if it was a property. Yeah.
oh, Laren's joined. He's obviously heard it, felt his ears burning as we talked about paragraphs being naughty.
Oh dear.
It's not your fault.
Welcome, Laren. Were you actually watching the live stream or did you just coincidentally join?
Just coincidentally, I had a client meeting that just ended a little bit early, so I didn't think I was going to make it today.
Okay, well, welcome. Well, what we're talking about is this issue 6900, where uh, it's an it's an issue in paragraphs that paragraphs uses a here we go uses a custom property inside of its entity type called field underscore name. And if you create a field called name, it also creates a property called field underscore name, and then the two collide with each other. So a user created field can conflict with the property that is hard coded in the module because they both result in the same property key, field underscore name.
And that's not good, right?
And that's not good. And so Martin has proposed a fix to core to prevent a field from being created that matches a property from the entity key list. So it would prevent this exact scenario from happening.
It's the field instance in this case, because in this case the field has already been created before paragraphs was installed. But it's stopping an instance being added to an entity that's affected.
Yeah, and we're trying to gauge exactly like how, like if this problem should
Yeah.
should really, be something that we address in core, and if so, how much should it be addressed, and how much of it should just be, well, this is paragraph's problem, or this is just something that you shouldn't do. Use a
Mhm.
property that starts with field underscore in a entity type.
Yeah, because I'm guessing, I may be wrong, but I'm guessing there's still going to be edge cases after this fix you're describing where you could run into this, where you've um, not added a paragraph, but you've added this field name on a different entity, and then you add paragraphs later.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah, so this fix would stop you adding that uh, uh, to a paragraph type, so to the bundle, because it's when you try and save a node with that paragraph type on that it causes the thing. So you could, if you'd already created this field name and you went on, you could carry on creating nodes with that field, and it wouldn't be a problem. It's only when you try and save an entity type, so it would stop that. But one of um, the other things we were talking about was having a requirements check for paragraphs that would basically say you've flagged something on the status report if you've already got. So this would be an update that would come in, and if someone had already got a field name on a paragraph type, it would flag it up on the status reports so they could go and remove that and create a differently named field that would do it, because they won't have been able to save anything with it. So they're not going to lose any content, but they'll want to fix it before it causes a fatal error for a site editor.
and I guess there's no backwards compatible way to just change that uh, property and paragraphs. Huh?
Yeah, and that's the other suggestion that Ben had is like, well, the paragraphs just change this so that it's something else, right? But yeah, like, yeah, the number of ways in which like a property can be referenced, and then, just changing it seems like it would likely just cause all kinds of issues. I mean, there is a backwards compatible way you could handle this, though. Dare I suggest it? Um, I mean, at least at the object level, and that you could use a magic method to connect the two, or you could just like duplicate the value of, the new property name into field name just so that it's still there, people are referencing it. But I guess not, I mean, you still wouldn't be able to make the database table compatible, because the database table would literally get a new column name. So I don't know. Changing a property just has really far-reaching consequences. So,
We
I mean,
don't know that
maybe you
anyone else
couldn't make
has.
it compatible, but you would just make, paragraphs, 4.x or whatever, make a new major version that
Yeah,
just fixes this problem. Because the number of sites that would really encounter the problem, might be minimal of changing the property. And you would just make them aware that the property was changing by a new major version.
right.
I'd be curious how many like even contrib modules. I mean, I never knew this was a thing on a paragraph before field underscore name. We've probably used this on like 50 sites or something. Crazy.
Yeah, can you search contrib on field underscore name and see if
Oh yeah, see see if anybody else references it. Can we do that just here? Field name? Yeah. Boy, that's so easy compared to trying to do that on Drupal.
There's only
Uh,
1,300 files. This will be easy.
look at that field collection. Uh,
Of course, field collection does it. Leave it to field collection to mess everything up.
oh yeah, this is gonna have too many. Let's do for I wonder if this will work. If we can do arrow field name like that. Okay, so there's paragraphs, right? We knew about that. Uh, okay,
or
that does,
spawning?
multi-field. It's all of the complicated modules. Okay, this is, oh yeah, field collection items. So this is date repeat dealing with field collections.
So yeah,
This
this
would be
would
so funny if it OG was also. I don't think this is a problem. Some of these are fine, but others are not. Um, well, anyway, so yeah, we could look through. There's only 4 pages to see if any of these are actually relevant to paragraphs. But so far, this first page, you know, paragraphs is the
but
only one.
as a separate thing, this kind of does make me think it maybe is a core thing, not a paragraphs thing to fix. Um, if it's also present in multi-field and field collections and
Hmm. Yeah, well, this pull request would fix some of the scenarios, but not all of
Mhm.
them. Because what I was mentioning earlier is that this entity keys list of properties is only the properties that are used as keys, not all possible properties that are on an object.
Yeah.
So yeah, then the intention here is this is all a great idea of like, if there's a special property on that entity, it shouldn't be allowed to be created as a custom field. So anyway, I'm still kind of in the same boat here, Martin, of like, if we wanted to merge this and just say this helps prevent the problem, even if it's not comprehensive, we could do that with a to-do saying make this more comprehensive to check all properties.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but if you wanted to do the like, check all possible properties, I think Ben's suggestion might be the most valid one of use reflection on the object class to see what properties exist on it. And, that way you can find the list of properties because I don't think they're listed anywhere else.
Is
Another thing I just looked up that I forgot about is doesn't Entity Plus have something called hook entity property info alter? So that could cause problems, right? Because you can alter entities properties. You can add new ones. Is that true?
I don't know.
I think you can. Maybe.
yeah, I've definitely tried to do that in a module before where you can define new properties. Um,
Well, does that get this question answered? I
yeah, I
mean,
think so.
yeah.
I mean, Lauren, are you happy if I put like a requirements check in paragraphs? It's
I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but it wouldn't help with the multi-field or field collections or
no, no. Just do
Yeah.
do they actually create entities?
Field collection does for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this issue, 165 in the paragraphs queue. I mean, since it's all relevant, this issue could be turned into, hey, stop using field name as a property in paragraphs and make a new branch of the. It looks like it would just be 2.x of paragraphs. Yeah, we've really changed the culture around major releases that major releases used to really indicate major new features, and now it really just indicates we broke something.
Well, actually, I wouldn't be opposed to doing a 2.x for paragraphs when layout paragraphs is ready, because that's going to be in here. And I'm also probably going to add paragraph library in here, so that adding all that would make sense with major version change.
Oh yeah, yeah, that would be great.
Even though
So
they're
that
not really breaking changes, but if we add this, there'd be like that would be the one potential breaking change.
yeah, yeah, that would be a strong motivating factor for people wanting to, move off of 1.x to 2.x. Yeah. It's okay. So that sounds kind of good. Then there could actually even be a timeline here, for making this change. Um, yeah, it'd be a big update hook. I mean, not really that big, but you have to update your table.
Yeah, and I think I guess in the end, the cleanest solution, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just don't do that. Yeah, I think that's the right solution from Paragraph's perspective because it, yeah, just using a property that starts with field underscore is just going to be problematic. And, all of these other things that we're talking about preventing, core preventing you from doing that or flagging when you have done it, like to tell you to not do it, right? And so, yeah, paragraphs could get ahead of the problem by just not doing it in the first place. Yeah. All right. Well, Aaron, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about today?
Not really, just popping in and seeing what's going on.
Yeah. Okay.
I it's a matter of getting the time to work on it, but the next big core thing I'll be asking for help on testing is the layouts one for use with layout paragraphs. But
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, in the category of things that we've talked about previously that are moving along or have already gotten to a certain point. This it's in the RTBC queue. Where is it? This issue of um, this one's been sitting here for a while as being RTBC. Um, and it's an innocuous looking thing, and I'm dragging my feet on it because I don't like what it enables, where it's just like, don't create these objects directly, use entity create instead. And uh, what this is preventing is it's preventing the swapping out of entire classes by entity plus module because it could use hook entity info alter to swap out the node class and replace it with node plus or something like that. Um, and if entity create were used everywhere instead of calling this nodes the objects directly, then like where it says new node, like this, entity create would instead use, it would return a node plus entity instead.
Would that still pass in functions that have type hinting? Let's say like node, whatever. Would a node plus still pass on that?
Yeah, so that's exactly one of the things that I was annoyed about in this change is that the type hinting is really easy for an IDE to understand when you're calling the object directly. It knows that this is a node object. And so the halfway compromise here is like, well, because we're losing that type hinting, you just get a entity interface here is the only thing you know entity create returns. And so we added throughout this pull request type hinting with doc blocks to indicate, hey, this is going to be a node object. But yeah, once this becomes a node plus, because entity plus has swapped it out, the IDE it won't know that it's been swapped out. It doesn't have any way of figuring that out. Um, I mean, if you were using a debugger, it would know that it was a node plus, but at runtime, but a parser wouldn't have any way of knowing that hook entity alter had swapped out the main class there. Yeah, do you have
I
any thoughts
don't.
on this, Laren? Sounds like you might your brain is turning on this. I can hear it.
I mean, my main it's not really a point, but the main thing that came to my mind is I've never heard of anybody talking about anything like Node Plus or, and it might technically make it possible, but I don't know that it's probable.
I I think that it is, because I think that that's what RG Piano is planning on doing.
I don't
That's
get
what he
that sense.
wants.
What gives you that idea?
Um, Mostly because when I've been raising this concern, he hasn't said that he's not going to do it. Because we talked
This,
about
Well,
a
but I
couple of
think
times. Yeah.
isn't one thing we also talked about is the usage is not consistent in core, right? So some places we're using entity create and some places we're using the class.
Yeah.
So one reason to do it would be to make everything consistent.
Yeah. And the places where we're doing it explicitly, sometimes that's uh for an obvious reason, like we know that we're working with a node, but entity create, what I've been doing it for is I tend to use it where we're taking an arbitrary entity or it needs to work with all entities, then I use entity create. But if I'm working with a specific entity and I already know it's only going to be nodes or it's only going to be files, then I just create that class directly. Um, but yeah, you're not wrong that it's like, there right now I have at least this like if it's generic, use entity create. If it's specific, call the class directly.
Got it.
And if we did this, then it would just become de facto standard. Just use entity create everywhere and never directly instantiate a class.
what was I can't remember the um, impetus behind this issue. Just someone for consistency, or was there a benefit to it besides that?
Um, so yes, so this is the framing of the problem is I want to use hook entity info alter to swap out the classes. But he's not saying that he wants to do it in Entity Plus here, but he's saying that, for developers, so theoretically, this could also be applied to, not theoretically, but practically, this would be applied to like custom module implementations. Like if you wanted to have a simplified or improved version of a particular entity and you were extending from another contrib module, you could do that in your own site, I guess, or in a contrib module.
Hmm. Well, I guess the other thing to do would be just to ask him. But he's also not the only maintainer of Entity Plus. I think I'm a maintainer and bug folder. So I don't think it's something he would just do unilaterally within Entity Plus.
Yeah. The actual the request here is, he wants to be able to swap out the classes. Yeah. And so, but I find this weird that, um, that the thing that's preventing it from working are these direct instantiations. And I don't really like that being like oh, well, it doesn't, this isn't possible because of an obscure just coincidence in the way that some of the code is written, right? It's not explicit anywhere. Another thing that was suggested during one of our previous meetings is, maybe we do this so that we are consistent. We use entity create all over the place. Um, but we don't allow the class to be swapped in hook entity info. Like in hook entity info alter, you could change that to something else, but then after it was called, it would set it back. Like it would basically lock that property. But then that's also just really, that's not something that we've really done before either. Yeah. I'm sorry, hook entity info alter.
Then RGPiano would have done all that work for nothing too.
Yeah, because that's the reason that's what he wants is yeah, he wants that. Oh, that's funny. Look at the example in hook entity info alter. It's not swapping out the class, but it is swapping out the controller. That's funny. Just kind of demonstrating that at least the way that the Drupal 7 API was designed, it it was like, yeah, sure, you can swap out the classes. Drupal 7 didn't have the class key like we do. It didn't use real objects, but it did have controller classes, which controls like the storage mechanisms. Wow. So
But it's also part of why Drupal 10 is so complex, right? Everything is swappable, and then you have to make other things swappable in order to make the main thing swappable.
yeah, exactly. And that's what this is saying this abstraction that we have, the abstraction is required. Whereas right now, this is very much, it's direct and it's simple and it's easy for both IDEs and humans to understand. I'm getting a file object here and not I'm probably getting a file object here. Yep. Um, well,
Well,
anyway.
there would be another like weird way to fix this, right? Which would be when Backdrop registers the node class, it checks to see if something else has overridden the node class, and like the overridden class is actually called the node class. But maybe that's crazy.
Oh, interesting. That could be crazy. I think that would, yeah, that starts changing the way that PHP is functioning because I don't think that you can just say, hey, that one class, rename it to something else because it's defined in code as like this is the node class. Um, yeah. Well, I don't know. I actually was going to start off like I've been leaning towards yeah, I started off as being opposed to this, and now I've kind of increasingly been like, I think I could be okay with this. Um, but now, Laren, you jumping in and kind of also expressing like, I'm not sure. The vibe I'm picking up from you is hesitancy.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I also appreciate the consistency of having it all the same. And even if we don't recommend people do something, the fact that this is really making things consistent and also providing this sort of superpower that we may not want people to use in Contrib, but if it makes life easy for them in some way in their own custom code, like that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think that if it exists, people will use it.
I
If
think
you, if you're
we do
doing it,
sometimes get people who are quite advanced developers, and then there's something that they really want to do, but it's just not possible with backdrop core, and they flounce off in a huff, and go somewhere else. But I think it occasionally happens. But I know RG Piano's probably at the cutting edge in terms of what he does with entities.
all right. Well, thank you for your opinions on that. We actually generated some new discussion points, and I didn't think we are going to because I've looked at this one and we've talked about it in 3 meetings now, I think, and I'm still just really on the fence about what to do with it. Uh, so anyway, thank you for your feedback. But all right, we're at the top of the hour, so we're gonna wrap it up for today. Thank you everybody for joining, Laren for joining in late. Appreciate your appearance.
Yeah, glad to be here. Good to see you
Okay.
all.
All right. Well, thank you everybody. We'll wrap up.